Hello, welcome again to the YouTube series Papa Lee and the Aliens. Today's episode is called The Evolution of Man. You will learn today what influence the sons of God and the Greys had on human development. Let us get started. So where did man first enter the picture? Remember in the Sumerian text that when the Agigi revolted, man was created to be the Anunnaki slaves to work in the mines. This is the same man that was created on the sixth day of creation in the book of Genesis. This was not the creation of Adam. That occurred around 6200 BC. Recalling the Sumerian text, and I quote, Anu and the Anunnaki of the sky ordered the Agigi to carry the workload of the mines. When the Agigi revolt, man is created and put on earth as slaves. The slaves would now provide labor for the Anunnaki. Here are the answers. Anu, God the Father, ordered the sons of God to create man. The sons of God took the DNA from an ancestor of the chimpanzee, which has 24 pairs of chromosomes. The sons of God took these primates to their base camp on the far side of the moon. There they genetically engineered and fused two short chromosomes of the chimpanzee's ancestor into one large chromosome. The new species would now have 23 pairs of chromosomes. I want to show you an example of this. This right here is chromosome 23 and chromosome 24 of the chimpanzee. These two chromosomes were fused to form one chromosome, which is chromosome 23 in man. So that's how the chimpanzee's genetic makeup was manipulated. They created man in their image because the sons of God have 23 pairs of chromosomes also. This new species was Australopithecus, or Lucy, in the paleontology world. Australopithecus was the first man created and was placed on this earth in South Africa. I want to show you this map over here on the far side. This was for where Australopithecus, I can butcher that name real good. I'm just going to call him Lucy. Lucy first started here in the area of Ethiopia or Kenya, and he would spread out there and multiply. There man was told to multiply and have dominion over the animals, birds, and fishes. Man would become the dominant species on earth. Man was to be a herbivore. This happened about 6 million years ago. And again, I want you to remember, this was not the creation of Adam. Adam came along about 6200 BC, where the first man was created 6 million years ago. In South Africa, Lucy flourished and multiplied. Remember that the Greys had a mining camp operation and base camp in the extinct volcano there. The Greys saw an opportunity to use Lucy as a slave mine or slave worker in the mines. That was the reason man was created, wasn't it? The Greys genetically engineered Lucy to walk more upright. This would free up his hands to carry more rocks and ore. Australopithecus, or Lucy, would lose its functional appendix used to digest cellulose in plants. This would force the new hybrid man to become a carnivore or a meat eater. We still have our wisdom teeth to remind us that we were plant eaters at one time in history. I want to show you this again. The South Africa, the Greys had their mining operation here. They took the Australopithecus, or Lucy, they hybridized it and changed the genetic makeup of it by changing the genetic makeup of the tail section. And I'll get into that in just a second. How did the Greys achieve this? They introduced their own reptilian DNA genetic makeup into the vestigial tail and appendix of Australopithecus. You'll find in the next chapter that the Greys also have 26 pairs of chromosomes, just like the sons of God, from whom the sons of God created them. And we all, three species, man, the Greys, and the sons of God, we all have 23 pairs of chromosomes. That's how we can do genetic, that's how the Greys can do experimental genetic engineering on man. All mammals have tails during their embryonic stage. No other mammal other than man has a vestigial or non-working appendix. Man's vestigial tail is not even attached to his spinal column during his embryonic development. The tail section is a separate structure and even contains a neural tube, a notochord, developing vertebra, gut and mesenchyme. Notice I said gut. The Greys were successful in splicing their own gene strands of their tail development into Lucy. Remember that apoptosis, or programmed cell death, plays a significant role in removing the tail of a human embryo. By exchanging and introducing the reptilian tail genes to Australopithecus and utilizing programmed cell death, the new hybrid Australopithecus would walk more upright, would lose its functional appendix used to digest cellulose in plants, and would be forced to become a carnivore. So let me catch you up here. All mammals are born with a tail, or they have a tail as a fetus anyway. This cat embryo right here will look just like this human embryo. When it starts out, this is the little tail right here, and this is the appendix of the human. All of the primates have appendixes that actually are functional. They help break down cellulose. They carry bacteria there, and that's how they break down cellulose. Man lost this ability to digest cellulose in the appendix, so therefore he has to go about digesting cellulose in different ways. But this was kind of like the cecum in a rabbit, or kind of like the extra stomach in a cow, that it was used to break this down. The tail section, or the embryonic tail, you can see this little picture of here. One, I always think of George Costanza in the movie where he had a little tail like that. But anyway, that's a picture of a little kid with one. This tail section is not even connected to the spinal column here. There's a void right here. And this is the same area where your hips come off. And if you were to stand more upright, then all of this would be affected. Because this tail section here has everything from skeletal tissue, ectoderm, which is skin, it has gut, it has nervous tissue, it has everything. So the Greys were able to manipulate this tail section here to where it would destroy the functional appendix of man, and it would also change the way he stood, and he stood more upright. And that was how they helped the primates come along, or man to come along, to where he was actually able to carry more rocks and workload in the mines. A colony of this new hybrid Australopithecus was maintained sufficient enough to provide breeding stock, workers, and a source of food. Australopithecus was unknowingly being maintained by cannibalism. Any of the old, injured, sick, or deformed hybrids were fed to the workers and breeding stock. It's kind of like the movie Soylent Green many years ago that was made. You'd have to go back in the archives to find it. The Australopithecus hybrids were not in shackles, but were maintained more like the later Egyptian slaves. They were controlled by providing food and shelter. Punishment for breaking the rules was death. Over a period of time, with the increase in protein in their diet, the Australopithecus hybrid's brain would increase in size over 300 cubic centimeters. They became more intelligent. I want to show you an example of that. This is the brain, or the skull and the brain of Lucy, or Australopithecus. When you have a protein diet, it produces more brain cells, and your brain will increase with more protein. That's when kids in underdeveloped countries that don't have protein and just raised on rice and beans, their intelligence is often in question. So this increased over 300 cubic centimeters, and that was quite a significant increase. And because of that protein diet, the Greys kind of shot themselves in the foot, because the new smarter Australopithecus hybrid was repulsed by the cannibalism and captivity they were forced to endure. Just like their masters, the Agigi, the Australopithecus hybrids revolted. Some workers escaped. Eventually violence would be a threat to the Greys. In order to protect themselves from harm, all traces of the mining camp and breeding colony were destroyed. With no place to go but north, the Australopithecus hybrids traveled to Ethiopia, where they would find refuge in the mountain forest. Here, the new hybrid species of bipedal primates would flourish, and the evolution of man would take on a more familiar scenario. Again, the Australopithecus started here in the Kenya, Ethiopia area with the mountain forest. The Greys took some of these and genetically altered them and worked in the mining camp here. When these workers revolted and they escaped, Some of them were probably killed, but some of them escaped. They went back up to their native land. Here they would probably interbreed, or because they had now become cannibals, or they might even eat some of the remaining man there. The story of the evolution of man has been enhanced in the last decade with the help of mitochondrial DNA investigation. The analysis of the genetic material of the human population based upon the mitochondrial DNA has allowed the mapping of human routes of expansion worldwide. Lots of information on the human diaspora, or dispersion of man, is contained in the book The History and Geography of Human Genes by L. Lucas, Cavalieri, Sorzo, Paula Mendoza, and Alberto Biazza. Man, I can butcher these names up so good. So anyway, I told you my vocabulary is poor, my enunciation is poor. But anyway, as far as the migration and the evolution of the Australopithecus hybrids, I propose two routes. Because of the increase in brain size and intelligence, the Australopithecus hybrids replaced and eliminated their native Australopithecus cousins, either by interbreeding with them or eating them. Remember, the Australopithecus hybrids were carnivores. Some of the hybrids traveled west on their first route and then north along the Atlantic coast. Over their long journey spanning several million years, they evolved into Homo habilis. Homo habilis would continue migrating north, crossing the dry straits of Gibraltar. He would eventually evolve into Homo neanderthalensis and occupy Europe. He would even migrate to the Middle East. So let me take you on the tour here. This is where the hybrids were. They had interbred, or they had eaten the normal Australopithecus. They started migrating in this direction. Over millions of years, they turned or evolved into Homo habilis, one of the early mans. They continued traveling and migrating. I would think they probably migrated along the coast. They were probably great fishermen. But anyway, they migrated across the dry. At this particular time, the Mediterranean Sea and the Straits of Gibraltar were dry because of the glaciers. By the time he got here, he had evolved into Homo neanderthalensis, or Neanderthal man. He continued spreading out, and he traveled even to the Middle East. Again, I think he followed a lot of the waterways and was probably living on fish a lot. He was a hunter and a gatherer. The other Australopithecus hybrids in Ethiopia migrated north along the Nile River. Evolving as they slowly wandered northward, the Australopithecus hybrids evolved into Homo erectus. Homo erectus was the first ancestor to walk truly upright. This was made possible by locking knees in a different location of the foramen magnum. Homo erectus traveled to the Middle East and southern Asia. Here he makes his final transformation. He evolves into modern man, Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens becomes a world traveler. By 15,000 BC, Homo sapiens had populated the world. So let me take you on the little tour here. Australopithecus, we already said, came over here and migrated northward, probably along the coast, evolved in Homo habilis. He also, part of him, migrated northward along the Nile River. The Nile River runs right along here. There he could have food, fish, and eat everything there. He evolved into Homo erectus on this journey up here, again, over millions of years. By the time he got to the Middle East, he had evolved into modern man, or Homo sapiens. Homo erectus had also migrated down here into India, and evolved into Homo sapiens down in this area. He also migrated over into Asia. And by the end, about 15,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had migrated from Africa, from the tip of Africa here, had migrated up here, migrated into Europe, had migrated north over China, over the Alaskan Straits into North America. He had also migrated southward through Asia into India, and he even went all the way over here to Australia. So that was the path that he took. You need to know three things here. First, man was created by God and the sons of God to work in the mines. He was to replenish the earth after the dinosaurs were killed. Secondly, the Greys manipulated the first man's genes to make him stand more upright to work in their mines, and he became a carnivore. Third, there are two species of man. There were two species of man, the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. The Neanderthals were later eliminated or became extinct. We're going to add one more species of man next episode, and there you're going to find out who this player was. That player was Cro-Magnon. I will cover him next in the next episode. So for tonight, I'm going to say good night again. Papa Lee signing off. The Lord is my shepherd. Bye.